Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Lighting the Torch Fireside Chat. My name is Candace Miles, but I go by Coach C. I am the founder and CEO of No Gap Consulting, where I am empowering the next generation of Black women making their debut to leadership. But I'm also to the millennial. I'm representing the millennial generation here for this chat. And I can go ahead and announce that I am also to the 40 under 40 out here in San Diego, adding that to my resume of emerging leaders out here in San Diego. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that little that little thing to my resume. But thank you guys for joining. And I'm also to your co-host, which I will kick it over to my co-host, Cynthia.
Awesome. Thank you, Candace, and congratulations, my dear. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Haley. I am CEO of Transition to Infinite Possibilities, where I help corporate professionals elevate in their careers while also elevating in their energy. And I'm just happy to be here, Candace. I know we are ready to bring another fireside chat to our audience. So I think I'm going to throw it back to you just to kind of give the audience some premise around what we do and why we do it.
Yes, for those who are joining us today, we call this chat "Lighting the Torch" Fireside Chat. It's where we actually light the torch from generation to generation, sharing our unique perspectives and experiences. Where at the end we offer a generational point of view where we actually light each other's torch from generation to generation. Because it really is truly about passing on the wisdom, no matter what generation you're in, and that's exactly what this chat is. But like Cynthia said, we are in for a real good topic. Actually, I really had a good time like talking about this when we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about next.
Absolutely. And I need to insert this piece because with this topic, my generation, I am generation, what am I? X? Yeah.
Ooh.
Freezing, I think. But with Generation X, right? And you are the millennial generation, or as you like to call it, what's your phrase you like to use, Candace, for your millennial
Oh,
generation?
well, I like to say I'm an elder millennial. That's what I call it.
All right, so I think acknowledging our generation is really important for this topic because we're hitting on from AOL to TikTok. Are you really connecting or just clicking? And what we mean by that is, in the workplace, as technology has evolved, how are we really connecting with people in the office? And as we prep for this conversation, I thought about, once upon a time there were phones on our desks when we went into the office, and how we could just pick up the phone and call someone, whereas now desks don't have a phone anymore. It's all teams or different chat vehicles that we're using in the workplace, and people just don't have that direct connection anymore. And then when you think about, we coined the phrase with AOL to TikTok because AOL is now considered the Stone Age, but I got a strong feeling somebody watching this might just still have an AOL account. But back then we were actively engaged. People were social. They were talking. They were, having conversations about issues or, topics and things that needed to be discussed in the workplace. Whereas now we hide behind a computer screen and are not as engaging. And it's, in the TikTok frame, it's quick hits, right? You got 30 seconds to get what you need out. If you don't, it's missed. And so We're bringing this topic here today to just talk about how things have evolved and how it's impacting you in the workplace, and what can we do about it to make sure that we still feel connected and not just a click away. What are your thoughts, Candace?
Yeah, I thought about when we were thinking about this topic was like my first experience, like when it came to the workplace and what the way that I experienced like digital. And I know some millennials they came in with social media, but like I said, me being on the elder side of the millennial generation, I came in. I remember having to write my first professional email to send out, and that's totally different. Texting wasn't huge back whenever I got into the workplace. It wasn't like something that our instant chat, that was something that was just getting introduced. But sending out my very first email, that had to be the most stressful thing in the world, because you had to think about your tone. Okay, what words should I
Mm-hmm.
use? How are they going to receive it? Even to the point, before I even sent my first email, I remember sitting there checking my boss at the time at their email and being like, just reading it from their
Mm-hmm.
perspective, like how they wrote it. I was like, I don't think you can say that, because that sounds very attitude-ish on there. But just my experience coming
Ah,
into the digital space, yeah, I still was in that. I feel like because I'm on the elder side of it, I was in between of the face to face and the digital being introduced into the workplace. I don't know about your experience when you first came in.
yeah. Well, if I date myself, email wasn't very prominent, right? It was we were just kind of getting kicked off with a lot of email stuff. When I got started in corporate. But I'm reminded of this story where we had a guy on the team, older gentleman, and it was like Excel was really like thriving. People were using spreadsheets, digital stuff, right? And he still wanted to use a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm not doing that. And we were like, you got to move with the times, Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we're continuing to evolve, right? The one story that I do have that I felt very uncomfortable with was switching from the phone on the desk to the phone on the computer. And when we came into the office and there was no phone on the desk, I was like, how am I supposed to function? I had some colleagues that were like, no, I put in a request to keep my phone on my desk. And for me, it felt like the initial phases of losing that one-on-one connection, right? People started to just communicate by email or communicate by a chat or what have you, and it became a lot more impersonal. And I felt
Mm-hmm.
like, why can't we just pick up the phone and talk? So that was a disconnect for me, and it took a lot for me to get over that hurdle.
Yeah, and I know I told you, I was like, when we the last organization we worked for together, I was like, what is this on the desk? Because I was so used to soft phones and able to just dial to chat, when it came to that. But that's where we had already hit it. But it's crazy because when you said that
Mm-hmm.
about like some people putting in their requests to actually want to keep their phone, I I don't know if you heard the book or ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese, and it made me think about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that, particularly how you're wanting to stay in this space, but the world is
Oh,
evolving, and so
yeah.
even with that, I'm assuming the generation that wanted to keep their phone on the desk was in your generation or above.
Um, ah,
It's
I
it
mean, what seems to be the problem? Uh,
But I think it does take away. I will definitely agree.
So yeah, yeah, it takes away and we lose that connection. And then you couple that with, you know, the pandemic, right? I feel like when we stepped away with the pandemic, we lost that social connection, right? People aren't socializing, right? In the way that they once
Mm-hmm.
were, meaning more contained or not as engaged, be to themselves. They certainly don't want to turn their cameras on a Zoom video or what have you. It's it's losing that connectivity in some ways, right? When I think about it, um, having a conversation without it, things get lost in translation, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
interpreting
100%.
something digital. You're interpreting an email. You're interpreting a chat, and how you interpret that may not be the intent from the
Mm-hmm.
person who was sending it. And so imagine how different that could be if you were just picking up the phone and you could hear that messaging coming through and you don't have to assume. You know what I mean? So it's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
just different now. And if, we have people listening, I'm curious to know, would you prefer to go back to the AOL era, or are you comfortable with the TikTok era where things are just in bite size? It's quick. You need to say what you need to say in a short amount of time and grab that person's attention, or either it's just completely lost and there's no real connection.
And I think that's where you hit the nail on the head there, is because now everything is so quick. Whenever it comes to you speaking, you got to get your things out. We already know it was 10 seconds at one point, and then it went all the way down to 5 seconds before people are moving on to the next thing. And I'll be honest, it's not just the millennial or the Gen Z era. That impact is starting to also to um be with the older generation. I would actually say your generation, or the generation of before you. I don't think they really use a TikTok like that, but when it comes to it, it's just instant. And that's what you're seeing, not just at the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing it when you go out to the grocery stores. Right now, they already got Halloween out. Pumpkin spice has already made its appearance, and we are still in summertime.
Yeah.
It's that instant where that to hurry
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But I think this is
Mm-hmm.
where companies have to figure out how to really put in the strategy to connect the generations together when it comes to effectively communicating. Because you do have the Gen Z that came into the
Right.
workplace during the
Right.
pandemic.
And you have to
So
be
they're
intentional with
socially,
that, right?
have to be very
Mm-hmm.
intentional with that. Did I cut you off?
All right. And pardon if there's any, if I was just going to say, pardon if there's any lag, here on the East Coast. For our viewers that are listening in, one thing that you may not know, I'm on the East Coast, Candace is on the West Coast. Here on the
The
East Coast,
sunny
we had a lot
10.
of impacts with Debbie over here with the rain. So I think I'm having a little bit of lag, so apologies for that. But getting back to addressing the generational gaps and how we can effectively communicate in the workplace. One, I think as leaders, it's acknowledging that there are differences in styles of communication. You know, you may, it's not a one size fit all for some employees, and you may need to approach your conversations differently based on that style. And that's why you sit down and you get to know your employees and understand what's going to work best for them. Some people do prefer, tell me what you need to know and let me just run with it. Some people, you're going to need to talk to them, talk it through, make sure it connects, make sure it sticks, and there's clarity and understanding. So I really think there's a need for people leaders to really understand the dynamics of their team and how best to communicate. Do you have the AOL person on your team, or do you have the TikTok person on your team?
Yeah, because that was, I think for me, the eye opener. I went to some little seminar when it was a workshop, nothing work related at all. But they brought in this professor who specifically was a Gen Z professor. That's what she focused on. Her focal point was for Gen Z generation. And it just made me really think about the way that she mentioned something as simple as, hey, if you lost a friend back in this generation, you would have that conversation and know you guys lost your friendship. Now, for this other generation, it's simply by unfriending them on social media. And so from that, it made me think about, okay, now I have a team of diverse, it's very diverse team across all generations. Let me actually schedule that out. And like, that's what you said, that strategy,
Right.
even though it may seem like, okay, I don't know why we're doing this right now in the beginning, there's going to have to be patience for it to be adapted, because I specifically broke down and researched every single generation and was like, okay, this generation prefers this type of style, meaning they prefer for you to be formal with them. They prefer face to face on the phone. And it broke it down from generation to generation. And it was like, hey, at the time I was like, when you're talking to the people on the phone, look at their age, start adapting to how you send things, what you're offering them. But it's that intentionality that you were talking about that has to be implemented in order to really effectively feel that connectivity. Because everybody wants to be heard at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was just getting there, and it's because it's like on the receiving end, there's an opportunity for employees to also speak up, meaning if the style of communication that your leader has is not working for you, take a moment and just start to communicate that, share what does work. Maybe it's a simple question, and people who know me know that I love to use this phrase in meetings or conversations and things like that. I will insert, help me understand. If someone's sharing something and they're going a mile a minute, or, really talking about a topic and it's just not clear to me, I'm going to press the pause button and I will ask, help me to understand. And I think that it inserts a necessary pause so that you, as an employee, you get what you need, but it also makes that person or that leader press the pause button as well and say, whoa, maybe I could approach this conversation a little bit differently. Or maybe I said it too fast. Let me slow down. And so I would encourage anyone who is feeling like either they're not heard or they're not getting the communication style that's going to best support them, to actually speak up in a one-on-one, just start to share what works best for you. And if the culture of the organization is shifting, you may also need to start shifting, but start where you are and make those necessary incremental steps to progress. And for leaders, meet them where they're at and help them to start making incremental changes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I feel like it's both that's needed. And I really feel like it's more on the face to face, pick up the phone, that's a little bit needed more heavily in order to start really bridging like the connectivity in the workplace. Because we've gotten, I don't know about you, but I'm like, why did I get another email? Why is this another email? Like, why am I getting another email? And there's some cases where having that thought process, or that mindset to understand that, okay, I've gone back and forth with this person 2 times. We've had 2 exchanges. Let me actually say, hey, let's pick up the phone, because obviously something's not clicking. And the way that my mind sets up depends on what type of day I'm having. especially being in leadership, I can be like, wait,
Yeah.
are they coming? Are they coming for me? Because we do think that, because we're thinking, we're reading it in our tone, like whatever mood we're in that moment, we're reading it in that tone. I used to tell people
Mhm.
all the time, like, I can tell you, hey, the sky is
Yeah.
blue, and versus the sky is blue. Like, it's however you read it whenever I send it to you. But I really do think that, that connectivity has to start with
Yeah.
more, especially because the world is opened up more, people are getting back in the office. It really has to be, hey, when is there time to pick up the phone, have a face-to-face conversation? And the older generation, because they are comfortable with it, to
Yeah.
teach the younger generation about how to do that. And sometimes it's just opening up your arms and saying, hey,
Mhm.
let's talk.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So what about we said in the topic, are we really connected? And it feels like, we're shifting where connectivity is not as desired as it once was, right? And so we we position topics around networking, mentoring, and all these kinds of things to help people navigate in their career. But how effective is it nowadays? Are people really putting forth the effort to network, or are they staying in their bubble
Mm-hmm.
because they can go to social media to network and be behind the screen and not really have to show their face? How do you think that's
Yeah,
impacting the workplace, having that connectedness?
I I think networking, I'm not going to say it's outdated, because I definitely do believe that there's value there. However, maybe the phrase of networking maybe are a little bit archaic, where nowadays people
Mm.
want to feel community. Hey, come to this community event where it's different people coming
Mm-hmm.
in, and they're creating that community, because everybody wants to be a part of a community, whether or not they vocalize it or not. Everyone wants to feel like they belong. Networking may sound very, very, very professional and very, like, pressure wise, when it comes to especially the young generation that's never done it before. Heck, even with
Mm-hmm.
me, there's times where I get into these networking events and I'm just so introverted, where I'm nervous and I really don't know what to say. But then someone else, normally it's someone that's a little bit older than me, comes and starts talking to me, then it frees me up. But it's because, like, that uncomfortable feeling. So maybe not so much of the, I don't think it's the
Mm-hmm.
actual act in itself. Maybe it's the wording, where, hey, maybe if we change this a little bit to say, hey, let's have a community event where everybody comes.
Candace, I believe you are onto something, my friend. And you think about it, people do feel more comfortable in like employee resource groups because it's more of it's a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're onto something with that. And when I even think back to the term networking, back in the AOL days, right? People had business cards. They showed up with a physical business card, wanting to stand up in suit and tie, dresses, and hand out cards, make those type of connections. Now it's not like that. You might have a QR code, or you might say, "Follow me
Mm-hmm.
at Tip Energy Coach," or something to that degree. So it has evolved, and um, the time goes by so fast. I was going to say, when we think about that, lighting the torch and how to carry it forward, I really want to pull on that thread of community that you shared, right? And continuing to evolve as corporate professionals, career professionals, whatever it is, whatever space you're in, just continuing to evolve in your career, but knowing this one thing. And I share this phrase that my father has said, and I have I feel like I've repeated it a lot this week. But it is, you have to change with the change or be defeated by the change. And so, what I would say to anyone listening is to embrace the change that we're in, continue exploring ways to be more connected with your colleagues, with your peers, with your community, and it will help you continue developing, continue growing, and continue expanding within your career.
Is that you lighting? Are you lighting a torch? Is that what you're doing?
I did. I did. I'm sorry, and it's delayed on my end, so apologies with that.
No problem. I would say for me is really to piggyback on what I was saying, as far as like the community, but even to when it comes to these ERG groups and everything like that. And I know that a lot of organizations, they kind of do it by, race, whatever you identify as, but maybe like even switching that up to begin to build connectivity and say, hey, this is the hiking group. Because now a lot of times people want more than just work. They want to be able to connect with their peers and everything like that on
Mhm.
a different level. And this gives it an opportunity to say, hey, here's a community. All these people hike. Here's a common interest. And now that makes it a little bit easier
Mhm.
for those people to feel like they
Right.
can go to those things and actually be open and vulnerable to connect with people because it's something of a common interest.
Right.
That also too will allow the whole face to
Agreed.
face to
Agreed.
organically to
Agreed.
start happening. Oh yeah, you're
I
freezing a lot.
totally agree.
All right, y'all. So we are at the top of, I wouldn't say the top of the hour, but we are at the end of our fireside chat. I hope you all have enjoyed it as much as we enjoy it. Like Cynthia always says, it does go by pretty quickly here within the 30 minutes, especially when we get to talking about things. Again, take these tips that we talked about where you can actually implement it at your job, no matter what position that you're in. It is all about lighting the torch from generation to generation. And on that note, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Good night.